Hi, this is Awaken Your Greatness, a space where we explore real transformation, grounded self-awareness, and the science behind becoming who you truly are. Today's episode is especially close to my heart. We're going to talk about something that many people live, but few know how to explain. What happens to your identity when you've grown up in different countries? When you've moved around so much that the idea of home doesn't quite fit anywhere? When people ask you, "Where are you from?" and you pause, unsure of which version of your story to share. There are questions that stay with us for years, even if we don't always say them out loud. Who am I really? Where do I belong? What does home even mean? These questions become especially complex when your life has taken you across borders, when your childhood or adolescence was shaped by different languages, landscapes, and cultures, when your accent changes slightly depending on who you're speaking to, when none of your stories fit neatly inside one country, one flag, one identity. This episode is for you if you've ever felt like you belong everywhere and nowhere at the same time. If you've learned to adapt, to adjust, translate, fit in, without fully feeling rooted. And it's especially for you if you didn't choose that path. If your life moved around because of someone else's decisions, a parent's job, political circumstances, migration, or even exile. If change happened around you and you simply had to keep going. Growing up across different countries shapes your identity in deep and lasting ways. It teaches you resilience, empathy, curiosity. It makes you observant, adaptable, fluent in nuance. It gives you the gift of seeing the world through multiple lenses. From a neuroscience perspective, being exposed to different environments during key developmental years, especially adolescence, stimulates neuroplasticity. It strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for integrating experience, planning, and emotional regulation. It literally rewires how you process the world. This kind of life can lead to what psychologists call a third culture identity. Not fully from your country of origin, but not entirely from the host culture either. You become something in between, a bridge, a blend, a mosaic. And yes, that can be incredibly enriching. But there's also another side, one that's often hidden. Because when you move often, especially during formative years, you might lose something important along the way, the ability to feel anchored. Not everyone who grows up internationally does so by choice. Many are carried by circumstances, and while they're gaining cultural knowledge, they're also leaving behind friends, places, languages, foods, smells, traditions, versions of themselves. This can create what's called unresolved migratory grief, the accumulation of small, unprocessed losses that over time build into a quiet sense of disconnection or emptiness. And in many cases, to heal those losses, you may need support. Working with a mental health professional can offer the space and tools to name, process, and integrate those fragmented parts of your story, not as something broken, but as something complex and valuable. One of the most common effects of growing up between countries is what I call perpetual translation mode. You translate your personality depending on the country. You filter your expressions depending on the context. You adjust your stories depending on what others might understand. This creates an emotional fatigue, because a constantly translated identity never fully rests. You become an expert at reading the room, sensing expectations, blending in. But deep down, you might struggle with the question, where do I get to just be, without needing to explain myself? Belonging, for those who've lived in different cultures, is rarely automatic. It's a journey. It's something you rebuild over and over, something you must learn to carry within. And yes, that process can be overwhelming. That's why seeking therapeutic guidance can be essential, especially if this theme stirs up grief, confusion, or emotional tension. With professional support, you can safely explore your identity and learn to anchor it, not in a place, but in yourself. But not everything about this is painful. Let's not forget the other side. When you grow up exposed to different cultures, you gain rare skills. You can feel comfortable in ambiguity. You know how to switch perspectives. You speak the language of nuance. You are a connector between people, between worlds, You've cultivated a quiet strength that comes from not fitting into any one mold. The key is to stop seeing yourself as fragmented and start seeing yourself as expanded. So, how do you begin to integrate all this? How do you reclaim a sense of identity when your story spans multiple places? Here are a few steps I often use in therapeutic and personal development spaces. 1. Stop simplifying your story for others. You don't owe anyone a perfect one-sentence explanation of who you are. Your story can be layered, non-linear, and rich in contradiction. Own it as it is. 2. Grieve what you've left behind. Maybe you never got to say goodbye. Maybe you left places or people without closure. Take time to acknowledge what was lost. Write letters, create rituals, or simply name those things. Grief is part of wholeness. 3. Choose symbols of inner belonging. You might not have one physical home, but you can create symbolic anchors. A scent, a photo, a song, a piece of jewelry. Let these be reminders that you belong to yourself. 4. Surround yourself with people who get it. Seek out others with similarly layered stories. Not for nostalgia, but for connection without explanation. Being understood without having to decode yourself is healing. 5. Use your complex story as a strength. You're not confusing, you're multilingual. In experience, in culture, in emotion, learn to value your fluidity. Your story is not missing something, it holds more. 6. Create daily practices that reconnect you to your core. Whether it's meditation, journaling, or listening to music from your childhood, repetition can be grounding. Let those small acts become your emotional home base. I also invite you to reflect. In which language do you feel most vulnerable? In which do you feel most powerful? Which language do you use to express love? And which one do you hear when you doubt yourself? Mapping your internal landscape across languages can help you make peace with your many versions and with the transitions between them. So where are you really from? Maybe the answer isn't a country, a city, or a language. Maybe it's a mosaic of places, people, emotions, and transitions that you've lived. Maybe it's not something to explain, but something to honor. And maybe, just maybe, the real question is not, where are you from? But rather, where do you give yourself permission to stay? Thank you for being here. Thank you for carrying your story with grace, even when it doesn't fit in a box. Thank you for choosing to come home to yourself. If you want to go deeper into your personal story, reconnect with your emotional roots, or create a stronger sense of belonging within, I invite you to visit www.𝚆h𝚚h𝚖al.es. There you'll find resources, workshops, and ways to begin this journey with support. I'm Alice, and this was Awaken Your Greatness. See you next time, wherever you are, because sometimes home is just a moment of truth.